It all begins when a gigantic beam of golden light tears across the sky and strikes the first academy in the city. Everyone is shocked to realize that a super rare awakening anomaly is occurring. At the center of all that energy is Su Zioking, the prodigy student whom everyone expected to do something great. The other students begin to whisper, wondering if she's about to get into a high-level class or something even more insane. The school principal gets all excited about the chance to win the jackpot, just as the light begins to take the form of a weapon. Then a golden sword with wings and a green jewel appears, floating majestically in the air. Suddenly, a mysterious hand appears amidst the glare to grasp the handle of that giant weapon. It is an imposing angel who reveals himself before all, firmly holding his sword. The director almost loses his breath when he realizes that it's a legendary class with sacred attributes at the maximum level. He then proudly announces that Su Zioking has awakened the epic six-winged angel class, receiving the sacred light sword. The girl stands there with that divine entity floating right above her, impressing everyone. The crowd of students goes wild and starts shouting to celebrate the success of the campus muse. Among the crowd, Wei Dao observes everything and admits that this class is indeed quite impressive. It all began 300 years ago, when mysterious space portals appeared without warning and brought a true nightmare to the world. Several monstrous beasts began emerging from these portals to attack humanity, leaving a trail of immense destruction in their wake. But that's how humans gain the ability to awaken classes, allowing them to become stronger by defeating monsters in those realms. With these new powers, people were finally able to defend themselves and face the creatures on equal terms. The warriors began using their special abilities to hunt monsters and protect what remained of the world. Currently, these classes are divided into 5 different categories, ranging from common to epic. The big mystery is that there are rumors about hidden classes that are even more powerful than the epic level. Wei Dao reveals that he reincarnated on this planet, which resembles a video game, and studied hard to get the best grades and prepare for this day. Meanwhile, the director congratulates Su Zioking, who assures him that he will continue to do his best. As the girl begins to descend from the altar, she walks with an imposing presence and passes right in front of Wei Dao. She gives a provocative smile and thinks she'll finally prove who the real genius is, since he always beat her on written tests. The other students continue praising the girl and comment that now she will surely leave Wei Dao behind. Without wasting any time, the director calls Wei Dao to be the next to undergo the awakening test. The crowd around him starts mocking him, saying that being good in theory doesn't guarantee a strong class and that he'll never surpass Su Zioking. The principal, on the other hand, is hoping that the boy will also achieve something incredible to bring fame to the school. Wei Dao confidently steps onto the stage and begins to unleash his energy to start the process. He clenches his fist, concentrating brilliant rays of light, and visualizes the awakening of his power. A colossal column of light explodes from the ground and rises towards the sky, startling everyone around. Huge lightning bolts begin to burst through the air in a terrifying visual spectacle. But the weather changes suddenly when the sky darkens completely and a freezing cold takes over the place. Someone shouts for them to look up, where a giant hooded skeleton emerges from the purple clouds. An entire horde of skeletal monsters and terrifying winged creatures begins to invade the skies. The director is ecstatic upon seeing that bizarre scene, believing Wei Dao is about to reveal something legendary. Su Zioking begins to sweat profusely and feels a chill down her spine from that dark aura, even knowing that they are merely illusions of awakening. Wei Dao smiled excitedly as he felt all that dark energy concentrating around him. He hopes to achieve a legendary class, while the hurricane of dark power grows even stronger. The purple storm begins to gather right in the palms of the boy's hands. A bright, mysterious light explodes from the center of that dark fog. And to everyone's surprise, what slowly descends from the sky is just a simple black shovel. Wei Dao holds the tool and is completely bewildered by what he has just received. The director loses all enthusiasm the moment he announces that Wei Dao has awakened the hidden class of undead summoner, wielding a shovel as his weapon. The entire audience falls into an awkward silence, unsure how to react to the scene. Suddenly, everyone starts laughing loudly and making fun of him, saying that his weapon looks like a toy shovel or a gold-digging tool. Su Zioking gives a smug smile with his arms crossed, feeling that he has won the dispute once and for all. Wei Dao scratches his head in confusion, unable to understand how such a terrifying awakening ended up resulting in such a common tool. He decides to open his status screen to check the details of his new summoner class. That's when he gets a shock upon discovering that he possesses the SSS-level talent of eternal immortality, which allows him to accumulate summoning effects infinitely. Wei Dao quickly realizes that, unlike other summoners who can only have one monster at a time, His hidden class allows him to create an unbeatable army of undead. He looks at his iron shovel and senses that this seemingly simple tool must hide some valuable secret. Upon examining the details, he discovers that the shovel is sealed, and that its special ability allows him to earn extra rewards by burying defeated enemies. The boy is thrilled with the discovery, realizing he can gain experience by eliminating monsters and obtain bonus items simply by burying the bodies. At that point, the director asks Wei Dao to stop stalling and just show off his summoning ability to see if it's truly powerful. Wei Dao extends his hand and casts his summoning spell, causing a bright purple magic circle to glow intensely on the ground. Several dark runes and lightning bolts begin to sprout from that mark of energy. But to the public's surprise, only a small, fragile, ordinary skeleton emerges from inside the portal. The director is disappointed to discover that it's simply a skeleton wizard, the lowest level of monster one could summon. Curious, he touches the creature's skull to try and understand if there is some secret difference behind that hidden class. But with just a light touch from the man, the skeleton completely falls apart and becomes a pile of bones on the floor. The students around him begin to laugh uncontrollably, mocking the extreme fragility of the boy's summoning. Instead of being startled by the laughter, Wei Dao gives a confident little smile at the corner of his mouth. He calmly explains to the director that, although a single low-level skeleton is weak, the great advantage of its power is another. With a snap of the young man's fingers, a magical energy begins to reverberate throughout the courtyard. Suddenly, dozens of purple portals begin to appear simultaneously on the school floor. The director's jaw drops as he sees several skeletons emerging from the shadows right before his eyes. The army of the undead continues to grow, covering almost all available space with hundreds of skeletal soldiers. With that terrifying horde under his command, Wei Dao challenges everyone with his gaze to see who would dare to face him now. The skeleton warriors stand firm, creating an intimidating barrier of pure dark power. The students who were previously laughing are now trembling and speechless at the sight of that absurd number of monsters. Su Zioking realizes with horror that, even though they are individually weak, that infinite number of undead makes Wei Dao's class extremely dangerous. The director analyzes the situation, intrigued, concluding that this colossal army can only be the result of the unique talent of his class. He immediately changes his demeanor and praises the boy, saying that despite the strange weapon, his future is incredibly promising. I was already thinking it was going to be one of those stories where the guy is humiliated for a good part of the book. The man then asks Wei Dao to collect his invocations so that the awakening ceremony can continue. The young man obeys but thinks to himself that they haven't seen anything yet, because he felt much greater things during the ritual. Wei Dao reveals that he saw the silhouette of a legendary skeletal dragon and knows that sooner or later he will be able to summon that beast. An hour later, the sky becomes clear and sunny again over the gym. The director concludes the event by congratulating the students and informs them that tomorrow everyone must go to the newbie dungeon to level up and compete for prizes. Wei Dao is thrilled at the chance to level up and secure extra points for his future. As the speech ends, the crowd begins to spread out across the main courtyard. At that moment, a blonde student named Qian Zihao approaches Su Zioking to show off his advanced Gale swordsman class and propose an alliance. The girl coldly rejects him immediately and tells the boy to get out of her way. She walks right past her suitor and calls Wei Dao's attention, telling him to wait a moment. The protagonist calmly turns around and asks what she wants with him. Su Zioking says that the dispute between them wasn't resolved today and challenges him to a competition inside the dungeon tomorrow. Resting his shovel on his shoulder, Wei Dao gives a smug smile and assures her that she still doesn't stand a chance of beating him. His confident response leaves the prodigy completely irritated and impatient. Qian Zihao bursts into the conversation furiously, drawing his golden sword and demanding respect from the girl. He threatens to break Wei Dao's legs right there to ensure he can't even enter the dungeon the next day. However, Su Zioking scolds the blonde boy, making it clear that he doesn't need anyone interfering and that he will defeat Wei Dao honestly. Embarrassed, Qian Zihao puts away the weapon, but warns the protagonist that she will only spare him today out of consideration for the girl. He completes the threat by saying that if he finds the boy tomorrow, he will leave him bedridden for an entire month. Wei Dao remains unfazed, gives a mocking smile, and replies that he will be waiting for that moment. The following day, armored military vehicles arrive at the test site under the bright sunlight. Several students gather at the entrance to the training area for the start of the practical tests. Some young people are anxiously discussing the first trial, mentioning that there are 3 secret kingdoms in that region. Another student points out that they are only allowed to enter the arid prairie, which is the lowest level territory. As Wei Dao walks through the hangar, he sees Su Zioking approaching him. She asks if he intends to join a group or if he will face the challenge alone, and the young man replies with complete certainty that he prefers to go alone. Su Zioking smiles confidently and says he'll play solo too, so that Zioking won't have any excuses when he loses. In the departure area, the principal climbs onto an elevated platform and uses a megaphone to get the attention of all the students. He explains that the dungeon test will last 8 hours and that reaching level 3 will guarantee 5 extra points on the final grade. The students listened attentively with smiles on their faces, already imagining the advantages they could gain from the test. The man further adds that eliminating elite monsters, leaders, or bosses will yield huge bonus points before the official start of the ordeal. Immediately afterwards, the immense, gleaming portal to the Barren Prairie dungeon opens before them. The youngsters run excitedly towards the cosmic whirlwind, shouting to secure the first wave of creatures. Wei Dao observes the group's despair from afar and mockingly comments on how excited they are. He then begins to walk calmly towards the portal, deciding that he should also show a little enthusiasm. As soon as he crosses the magical passage, the protagonist's feet touch the grass of a vast open field. He soon realizes that he has ended up alone in the middle of nowhere, since all the participants have been teleported to different locations. Suddenly, a strange noise coming from the bushes catches the boy's attention, making him look to the side curiously. A level 1 prairie marmot emerges from the middle of the bushes, and Wei Dao finds the little creature incredibly cute. But then, out of nowhere, the little marmot opens its mouth and lets out an extremely bizarre and deafening high-pitched scream. The deafening noise leaves the boy completely stunned and unsure how to react for a moment. Taking advantage of the distraction, the creature leaps at an astonishing speed straight towards his face. With no time to dodge, Wei Dao is struck squarely in the face by the creature. The groundhog bares its sharp teeth, ready to deliver a painful bite to the protagonist's nose. The boy's eyes widened with nervousness at that cute, yet extremely dangerous threat. Annoyed, he starts shaking his head and orders the creature to release his face immediately. He finally manages to grab the chubby monster by the scruff of the neck and complains about that treacherous and cowardly attack. Enraged, the boy throws the groundhog into the air and delivers a well-aimed kick to send it flying. The little animal rolls across the grass, squealing in pain after being hit by the boy. Wei Dao adjusts his collar, complaining that if he hadn't had quick reflexes, he would have lost a chunk of his face to the bite. With a grim look, he warns that he hopes the groundhog is prepared to face the consequences of what it has done. He then casts his dark summoning spell, causing a cloaked skeleton wizard to emerge onto the field. Quickly, dozens of other magic circles appear around the frightened little monster. Wei Dao summons a total of 20 skeleton mages, armed with fire magic, to completely surround the enemy. He points at the little creature and orders his henchmen to finish it off without any mercy. The guy has absolutely no patience. The skeletons launch several enormous fireballs toward the poor, defenseless marmot. A massive explosion of flames engulfs the area, eliminating any chance of survival for the little monster. The groundhog lies completely roasted on the ground while its tiny soul floats away. A system message congratulates Wei Dao on his victory and shows that he earned 10 experience points. The young man sighs in discouragement at the low value, realizing it will take forever to reach level 3 if things continue this way. That's when he remembers he has an entire army at his disposal and calls all his bone soldiers to work. He activates free attack mode and orders the creatures to clear the entire forest and eliminate any monsters they encounter. Elsewhere in a private room far away, a cup is being filled with piping hot tea. The director of a rival school asks Wei Dao's headmaster if he truly believes the First Academy can win this year's competition. Enjoying his tea, the director smiles confidently and replies that he has no doubt about it. The rival laughs at his confidence and reminds him that his own institution also managed to produce an epic class student this time. But a third colleague interrupts the conversation to warn that his partner's school not only has an epic class, but has also secured a hidden class. The man choked in shock and spat out all his tea upon hearing that unbelievable revelation. Completely shocked, he turns around shouting and asking if that's really true. The director of Wei Dao proudly confirms this and says he is eager to see his students hunting the dungeon's rarest monsters. Back at the test, constant magical explosions begin to detonate various marmots that were trying to escape across the field. The skeleton army advances relentlessly, unleashing destructive spells and clearing the map with ease. A skeleton wizard conjures double flames, sending another group of frightened rodents flying. While the fighting rages on, Wei Dao lies peacefully on the soft grass, enjoying the cool shade. Bonus experience points keep endlessly increasing on his screen while he simply takes a nap. He gives a satisfied smile, relishing the ease of leveling up without lifting a finger thanks to the absurd advantages of his hidden class. Lying on the grass, Wei Dao decides he can't just rest and resolves to test the special ability of his iron shovel. He walks over to the body of the defeated marmot, thinking of burying it to see what happens in practice. The boy begins to dig a hole rhythmically in the ground while humming an upbeat song. He peacefully places the monster's little body inside the grave he just dug. After covering everything with earth, Wei Dao wipes the sweat from his brow after completing the hard work. Leaning on his shovel, he waits in anticipation to find out what bonus prizes the system will release. Immediately afterward, 3 bright spheres float from the earth, and the system congratulates you on obtaining a bracelet, tomb incense, and corpse oil. He analyzes the item attributes and sees that incense grants continuous experience, and corpse oil temporarily improves all of its attributes if spread on the body. Wei Dao finds the origin of those items rather bizarre and sinister, questioning whether they are truly safe. In any case, he decides to put his prejudice aside and lights the purple incense to test its effect. At that same moment, a torrent of experience points begins to rise relentlessly around the young man. A beam of golden light envelops his body, indicating that he has just ascended to level 2 very quickly. The system panel confirms the success and congratulates you on your new level achievement. With a huge grin, the young man celebrates how easy and effortless it is to gain experience this way. Excited by the result, he grabs the jar of corpse oil to try the next bonus item. By pouring the purple liquid into your hand and spreading it over your body, your attributes of strength, agility, constitution, and spirit receive an immediate upgrade. Seeing that the scheme actually works, Wei Dao gives a malicious smile and decides to apply even more of that gooey substance. He gets completely covered in oil, causing the system to trigger dozens of attribute improvement alerts on the screen. The protagonist is impressed to see the massive amount of bonuses accumulated all at once. Upon opening his character sheet, he notices that his spirit has reached an absurd value of 337 points, even though it only lasts 10 minutes. Motivated by this temporary power, Wei Dao grabs his shovel and sets out in search of more monster corpses to bury. However, several system warnings suddenly begin appearing on the screen, alerting you that the number of your skeleton mages is rapidly decreasing. Confused as to what could be destroying his minions so easily, he hears an explosion in the distance and runs to investigate. Upon arriving there, he encounters a giant boar with red eyes mercilessly crushing his army of skeletons. The panel shows that the beast is a level 3 horned boar, considered an elite class monster. Wei Dao finally understands the situation, realizing that his weaker mages would be no match for the brute force of that savage creature. The wild boar lets out a furious roar upon noticing a new target in the area. He activates his wild charge ability and begins running at high speed toward the boy. Seeing that immense monster advancing like a runaway train, the protagonist desperately realizes he has been discovered. Wei Dao starts running as fast as he can, yelling at the giant boar not to come near him. But the beast continues to chase fiercely after the young man, giving him no respite. When he slips on the grass, he realizes he won't be able to escape just by running and needs to take drastic action. He turns around quickly and summons a new horde of skeletons right in front of him, ordering them to block the monster's attack. The boar violently crashes against the makeshift barrier of the undead with a terrifying thud. The impact is so strong that it shatters several skeletons into tiny pieces, scattering bones throughout the forest. Wei Dao manages to regain his balance and sighs in relief, aware that he would have been seriously injured if he hadn't used the skeletons as a shield. With blood in his eyes, the boy stretches out his arms and conjures a new massive wave of the undead. He analyzes the fight and realizes that, although the wild boar is strong and fast in a straight line, it is slow to change direction if surrounded. He commands his new mages to form a perfect circle around the enraged monster. Wei Dao knows that the beast can only focus its attacks in one direction at a time, leaving its back completely exposed. Under the boy's orders, the wizards unleash a rain of combined fireballs that explode the boar in a whirlwind of flames. The monster cannot withstand the massive attack and falls defeated, face down on the ground. At that same instant, a bright light envelops Wei Dao, announcing that he has reached level 3 and received bonuses to all his attributes. The system also reveals a rare drop shining in the air, an elite-level boar hide armor. The protagonist breaks into a wide smile upon realizing he acquired such valuable protective equipment during that hunt. As soon as he dons the new golden armor, a protective energy spreads through his body, further increasing his strength and physical resistance. Satisfied with the result, the boy rematerializes his iron shovel in his hands. Looking at the boar's giant body, he decides he can't waste such an elite carcass and begins digging to bury it. After finishing the job, only 2 yellow bonus spheres rise from the mound of earth. Wei Dao is indignant at the result, grumbling that even an ordinary marmot won 3 prizes and finding the elite monster quite stingy. But to Wei Dao's surprise, 2 very mysterious purple skill books floated out from within the golden spheres. The panel reveals that he has just gained the Spirit Fire spell and the ability to summon a skeletal boar. The boy is overjoyed with the unexpected prize and immediately apologizes to the monster's body, praising its generosity. He realizes that summoning a boar consumes very little spiritual energy, and that, with his current bonus, he can create several at the same time. Without wasting any time, the young man uses his power to learn the 2 new spells at once. The system glows, confirming that he has mastered the new beginner-level dark skills. Excited, Wei Dao focuses his purple magic and performs his first skeletal boar summoning. An imposing, giant, elite-level skeletal boar roars out of the portal, possessing terrifying physical strength attributes. The boy grinned from ear to ear upon seeing the new monster, knowing that his leveling speed would now truly skyrocket. Suddenly, a gigantic wave of golden energy cuts through the trees of a nearby forest with a loud bang. Wei Dao feels the pressure of the attack and looks towards the light, curious to know who is fighting in such an appealing way. Peering from behind the bushes, he sees Qian Zihao with his gleaming sword threatening 2 students beside a defeated giant turtle. One of the students angrily complains about the blonde boy's attitude, accusing him of stealing the elite monster they had found first. Qian Zihao just gives a smug little laugh and replies that he does what he wants because he's much stronger than them. Observing the scene from afar, the protagonist realizes that the rich kid bought an expensive, high-level suit of armor to deliver such exaggerated blows. To end the conversation, the blonde swordsman brandishes his golden weapon and orders the 2 to get out of his way immediately. The power outage hits the boys hard, throwing them backward as they scream in pain. At that moment, the giant stone turtle tries to take advantage of the distraction to sneak away across the lawn. Qian Zihao notices the escape and raises his sword to deliver the final blow and secure the experience points. However, from within the plants directly behind the monster, emerge Wei Dao's skeleton mage summons. The mages unleash swift fireballs that explode the giant turtle before Qian Zihao's sword even touches it. The blonde boy is completely bewildered and screams in anger as he watches his prey being stolen before his very eyes. On the other side, Wei Dao receives a golden beam of evolution and celebrates upon seeing that he has risen directly to level 6. Qian Zihao turns around furiously, his voice cracking with hatred as he realizes that it was the protagonist who stole his monster. Scratching his head mockingly, the protagonist says it was just a minor accident and that his summons acted on their own. The swordsman shouts that this is a lie and channels all his golden energy into his weapon to settle the score once and for all. He delivers a gigantic vertical blow towards the boy, daring him to withstand the attack. Instead of trying to dodge the energy blade, Wei Dao decides to test his army's defenses and orders an immediate blockade. A line of skeleton mages throws itself in front of the golden shockwave to protect its master. The attack cuts the bone monsters in half, generating a large explosion of dust on the field. The protagonist is somewhat startled to see how easily his front line was broken up by the sword. He regains his composure and thinks that, fortunately, the skeletons managed to lessen the impact of the blow before he was directly hit. The 2 wounded boys watch everything from afar, commenting that Wei Dao's summons are too fragile and that he's in trouble. But the protagonist merely smiles slightly beneath a somber aura, warning that it was the blonde guy who started the fight. With a merciless attack command, he causes several purple magic circles to appear on the ground around the enemy. This time, it's their new elite skeletal boars that emerge ready to unleash a savage charge. Qian Zihao rushes forward with his blade, taunting that no matter how many bones he summons, they're all still trash. He strikes his sword forcefully against the head of the lead boar, hoping to destroy it easily. But his weapon merely glides across the creature's hard skull without causing a scratch, leaving the blonde man horrified. The monstrous boar roars terrifyingly right in the face of the swordsman, who is paralyzed with fear. With a brutal headbutt, the creature throws Qian Zihao's weapon away and strikes him squarely in the chest. The rich kid is thrown into the air with no chance of defending himself against the physical attack. The rest of the herd of wild boars advances mercilessly to trample the swordsman to the ground. Qian Zihao collapses onto the field groaning in pain and too weak to get up after the massacre. He tries to plead for it to stop when he sees one of the giant skeletal paws about to crush his face. In the end, the blonde swordsman ends up sprawled amidst the flowers, his face bruised and completely defeated. The other 2 students watch the situation with wide eyes, terrified by the insane power of the summons. Wei Dao calmly walks over to them and asks for help carrying the rich kid's body out of there, as it would be problematic if he died during the test. Trembling with fear at the protagonist's intimidating gaze, The two immediately agree to help carry the wounded man. The young man simply watches with a satisfied smile as the two boys drag the arrogant Qian Zihao away by the shoulder. With the courtyard finally empty, Wei Dao looks around and rejoices that he can now bury the giant monster in peace. He examines the impressive size of the stone turtle, imagining the amount of valuable treasure that body must yield. But then suddenly a strange noise in the sky catches his attention, and he spots a huge blue goo falling towards him. The protagonist quickly leaps to the side to avoid the impact of the mysterious creature that plummeted from above. The monster reveals itself to be a level 5 dividing slime, classified as a dungeon boss. Wei Dao immediately becomes serious, surprised to be lucky enough to face such a powerful opponent right at the start. Without wasting any time, the boss attacks by firing several green bubbles of highly corrosive acid. The boy recognizes the danger of that corrosive magic and begins to focus his dark power to defend himself. He conjures his spirit fire magic to collide head-on with the acidic bubbles in the air. The acid droplets escaping the blockage hit the lawn, instantly melting the soil with a terrifying hiss. Wei Dao stares at the devastated land and swallows hard, aware that he would turn to dust if hit by that substance. The gelatin monster prepares to launch another consecutive barrage of poisonous bubbles. To counterattack, the young man extends his arms and orders his entire army of skeletons to advance with everything they've got. The bone mages raise their staffs and unleash a coordinated barrage of fireballs. The clash between the opposing spells generates a sequence of destructive explosions across the battlefield. However, some acid ends up splashing on one of the wizard's heads, dissolving his bones instantly. Seeing his soldier so easily defeated, Wei Dao realizes that the defense of his ordinary mages is far too weak against this boss. He concludes that the best alternative is to bet everything on the physical endurance of his new skeletal boars. The elite wild boars charge forward and trample the large gelatinous mass with a brutal impact. The force of the impact is so violent that it splits the giant slime in half, throwing the pieces upwards. The boy celebrates the success of the strike with a clenched fist, believing that victory was already guaranteed. But the separated pieces of the creature become furious and begin to writhe rapidly in the grass. Instead of dying, the slime begins to glow and multiply in a frightening way. Activating its splitting ability, the monster transforms into dozens of tiny slimes ready to attack together. Wei Dao recalls his academy classes, remembering that this type of creature multiplies precisely when it receives strong physical blows. But instead of despairing, he smiles confidently and remarks that that strategy unfortunately won't work against him. Beneath a magical purple aura, the boy boasts that the sheer number of soldiers is actually his greatest specialty. The horde of tiny jellies unleashes a massive rain of corrosive bubbles toward the protagonist. Wei Dao orders his skeletal boars to form a solid barrier on the front line to absorb all the damage. The bony animals withstand the acid bombardment, serving as perfect shields for the group. Just behind them, the boy commands his mages to unleash all their firepower over the protective barrier. A flurry of flaming spheres falls from the sky directly onto the army of defenseless little slimes. The chain explosions sweep across the field completely, eliminating all of the boss's divisions at once. An immense golden light envelops Wei Dao, confirming that he has defeated the boss, leveled up to level 7, and gained further attribute bonuses. The young man is amazed to see the absurd amount of items that fell from the monster, planning to sell everything to make a ton of money. Several spheres float in the air, revealing swords, shields, potions, and valuable accessories left as rewards. Seeing all that wealth scattered around, he pulls out a giant canvas bag to collect the prizes. Excited, the boy begins to bag each of the shiny items, leaving absolutely nothing behind. Just as it's about to end, the system notifies you that the test time is over and initiates the return teleportation process. Wei Dao is surprised and laments that the 8 hours of ordeal passed so quickly. Enveloped in a bluish glow, he clutches his bag full of treasures as he is pulled back into the real world. In the academy's courtyard, the students reappear, commenting with amazement on how quickly time has passed inside. Wei Dao appears in the middle of the magic circle, clutching his heavy bag, quietly complaining that he still wanted to play a little longer. As he walks, he hears people gossiping that Su Zioking single-handedly defeated an entire pack of level 5 wolves in spectacular fashion. The protagonist reflects on the rumor, admitting that the power of the legendary six-winged angel class truly lives up to its reputation. Suddenly, someone calls out to him excitedly from afar, saying they've spent ages looking for him in the courtyard. It's his best friend Zhang Dahai who arrives full of pride and challenges him to guess what level he finished the test at. When Wei Dao guesses that he's reached level 5, the chubby guy laughs and says that if he did that, the director would have to erect a statue in his honor. He points to himself, beaming with satisfaction, and reveals that he managed to reach level 4 in his first adventure. The protagonist congratulates his friend on the points he earned on the exam, while Dahai jokingly tells him not to be envious, as he now has a strong protector by his side. As soon as the chubby man finishes speaking, Su Zioking appears, walking confidently across the courtyard and calling for Wei Dao. Zhang Dahai steps protectively in front of his friend, saying that the school's muse has come to start a fight again, but assures him that the fat lord will take care of it. With no patience for jokes, the girl simply approaches and places her hand on the big guy's shoulder. With a quick and precise push, she throws the chubby guy aside without the slightest effort. Dahai falls face first onto the stone floor, groaning in pain from the unexpected tumble. Seeing his friend being treated like that, Wei Dao gets angry, unleashes his purple power, and warns that he won't go easy on her just because she's a woman. Su Zioking draws his powerful golden sword, replying that he needs no mercy and challenges him to make his first move. The two leap toward each other and clash their weapons in midair, generating a large shockwave. They land some distance apart, quickly preparing for the next exchange of blows. The prodigy swings her weapon, releasing a powerful burst of light energy and taunts him, saying he's too slow. However, Wei Dao uses his iron shovel to block the shockwave without moving, commenting that her blow was weak. Su Zioking activates her analysis spell to investigate her opponent, and is shocked to see that he managed to stop her attack with 80% of its power. The skill reveals that the boy is already at level 7, leaving the girl completely speechless and unable to believe what she is seeing. While she's distracted by the absurd numbers, Wei Dao seizes the opportunity and quickly advances, wielding the shovel. He executes an agile movement, bringing the sharp tip of the tool to within millimeters of the girl's neck. The protagonist smiles victoriously and asks why she didn't simply try to dodge the blow. Su Zioking lowered her head dejectedly, admitting that dodging wouldn't make any difference since she'd lost the contest again anyway. She turns to leave, but angrily warns that they'll settle this rivalry for real during the unified exam. Wei Dao scratches his head as he watches the girl walk away, sighing at the fact that someone so beautiful could be so competitive and hot-tempered. One of the students watching from afar was very impressed, commenting that reaching level 7 in just one day of testing was a brilliant feat. Meanwhile, a mysterious man gives a wicked, knowing smile, thinking that young Master Kyan has found a very interesting target for him to hunt. Dahai limps back to Wei Dao, complaining that his friend should have warned him he was so strong so he wouldn't have gotten beaten up for nothing. The boy simply shrugs playfully, saying it's not his fault if his friend wanted to show off to the school's muse. Wei Dao then bids farewell, saying he has some important matters to attend to and walks away from the courtyard. Carrying his bag full of war spoils on his back, the young man arrives at a busy shopping street. He walks towards the swap meet, planning to sell all the equipment he's accumulated to make a ton of money. Suddenly, a shady-looking merchant appears out of nowhere behind him, startling the young man by asking if he wants to buy something. Meanwhile, a white luxury car cruises down the city road in the late afternoon. Inside the vehicle, Su Zioking's father notices his daughter's silence in the passenger seat and asks why she seems so upset. The girl looks dejectedly out the window and wonders if she's really useless for not being able to win. The man looks at her in the rearview mirror and retorts that she is the brightest and most talented student in the whole class. She sighs in frustration, remembering that even so, she ended up being completely outshone by Wei Dao today. Her father then adopts a serious expression and offers to teach the boy a lesson if she wants. The young woman refuses immediately, stating firmly that she will train hard to surpass him using only her own strength. She also takes the opportunity to ask her father to help Wei Dao if the powerful Kyan family tries to take revenge on him for the dungeon incident. The man chuckles at his daughter's concern, but secretly decides to send someone to investigate the mysterious boy's past. Back at the market, Wei Dao refuses the merchant's offer, explaining that he is actually there to sell a large quantity of items. The salesman suggests that the young man hand everything over directly to him to save time, but the protagonist suspects that the man is trying to scam him. The man gives a friendly smile and swears that his prices are the fairest and most honest in the entire market area. Wei Dao decides to give it a try, throwing the enormous canvas bag to the ground with a heavy thud for the merchant to assess. Upon opening the bag, the man is nearly blinded by the intense golden gleam of the high-level weapons amassed inside. He pulls out a rare level 5 sword, and the protagonist asks how much he'll offer for the 25 pieces of equipment. The merchant pretends to think for a moment and offers 15,000 coins for the entire lot of weapons and armor. Wei Dao makes a serious face, raises 2 fingers, and demands at least 20,000 coins to close the deal. To the young man's surprise, the merchant immediately accepts the counteroffer and shakes his hand, sealing the deal almost too quickly. The protagonist stands there, dumbfounded with a stunned expression, desperately wondering if he was tricked for asking for too little money. Trying to change the subject, the salesman asks if the young man studies at the city's first academy. He then pulls out a small, gray 10 cubic meter magic bag, insisting that the boy will need space to carry his belongings on his upcoming adventures. Wei Dao examines the magic pouch with interest and asks about the price of that storage accessory. The merchant gives him a friendly pat on the back, saying that the normal price is 50,000, but he's offering it for 30,000 just to befriend the guy. Wei Dao boldly points his finger and demands to pay half the price charged for the magic bag, offering 15,000 coins. The merchant accepts the counteroffer immediately and quickly pulls out his cell phone, explaining that it's a small business and that he doesn't accept exchanges or returns. The protagonist's phone vibrates instantly, confirming that the transaction was a complete success. He stares blankly at the screen, suspecting he's been tricked for the second time in a row. Meanwhile, in a simple alley in the city, an elderly man with long white hair and traditional clothing rents a humble room, assuring the landlady that he will only live there for a month. The elderly man holds the room key firmly and peacefully agrees to the conditions imposed by the woman. Alone, he complains about the head of his family making such a fuss over a mere young boy who has just woken up, forcing an old man like himself to watch the boy's every move. Back in the alley, Wei Dao walks calmly towards his house and ends up crossing paths with a beautiful woman with long hair named Wu Xinyu. The young woman smiles warmly upon recognizing him and joyfully celebrates the young man's return. The protagonist stops and politely asks if there's a problem, while she comments on hearing rumors that he awakened as a summoner and took first place in the tests. Truly thrilled with the news, the woman grabs the young man tightly by the shoulders in a very excited manner. She pushes him against the alley wall and says mysteriously that she can finally give him the special gift she's been saving for him. Wu Xinyu leans close to his ear provocatively and whispers for the boy to close his eyes for a moment. Wei Dao lays his head down, quite red and tense, remembering that her husband passed away a long time ago and imagining that she must be feeling lonely. But to his surprise, she simply walks away laughing and reveals a small wooden box containing a strange, shiny bone finger. The protagonist opens his eyes and is intrigued as he examines the purple and mystical aura emanating from that peculiar object. The system informs you that the item is called the mysterious bone finger, and it can improve the quality of your summons or temporarily transform you into an undead being. The woman sadly explains that the relic belonged to her late husband, who is also a summoner, and suspects that his death is related to the item. Wei Dao understands the situation immediately and asks if she is handing over the artifact so that he can investigate the truth behind her husband's death. The young man considers the dilemma, knowing that the power of that bone is unbelievable, but he fears the dark dangers he might find himself in if he accepts the mission. He reflects silently, his gaze fixed on the horizon for a few seconds with a determined look. He decides to accept the challenge, considering that great rewards require great risks and that he must repay the help he has always received from his neighbor. The young man looks confidently at the girl and promises that he will do his best to unravel this whole mystery. Overcome with emotion and in tears, Wu Xinyu hugs the young man tightly and thanks him as her great savior, while he tries to calm her down by saying that he hasn't solved anything yet. She smiles gratefully and replies that the simple fact that he accepted the request is already a huge help to her. Wei Dao then bids his neighbor a friendly wave and goes into his apartment to rest. The boy closes the bedroom door and throws his bag on the floor to begin his private tests. Seated comfortably, he examines the bone finger closely and concludes that this item truly hides enormous potential. Determined to discover the artifact's power, he grips it tightly in his hand to test its special effect. He activates the shape-shifting magic, and his body begins to be enveloped in a dense and frightening purple smoke. A massive explosion of dark fog impressively engulfs the entire area. The system warns that transforming into an undead consumes 1% of your experience per minute, while Wei Dao transforms into an imposing skeleton with red eyes. The protagonist admires his new skeletal structure and excitedly realizes that all of his physical attributes have been incredibly enhanced. Excited by the increased power of his new form, he has a rather curious idea. The boy looks inside his pants, wondering if that intimate area has also received some kind of bonus upgrade. But he begins to cry in despair when he realizes that the improvement has failed miserably because he no longer has any meat left. In utter panic, he grabs the skeleton head and begs the system to deactivate that useless transformation immediately. Wei Dao screams in despair as the magical smoke begins to reverse the metamorphosis process. He finally returns to normal and sighs in relief upon realizing he can control the transformation freely, although he nearly died of fright. He scratches his head thoughtfully, concluding that the rapid consumption of experience means this skill should only be used in extreme emergencies. Suddenly, a persistent knocking on the apartment door breaks the silence of the place. Wei Dao turned quickly on alert, wondering who could be knocking on his door at this hour. The sound of banging continues to echo mysteriously through the wood of the closed door. The boy cautiously approaches and demands to know who is on the other side, and why the person isn't answering his call. With a slow, unsettling creak, the door begins to open on its own before him. A shadowy silhouette emerges in the dark corridor, and the white-haired old man introduces himself in an intimidating manner, asking if he is Wei Dao. Startled by the sudden appearance of the strange man, the young man attempts to throw a direct punch, mistaking it for a threat. With extreme ease and lightness, the elderly man extends his palm and effortlessly catches the protagonist's wrist in midair. The man asks for calm in an ironic tone, revealing sympathetically that he is merely the new neighbor from the apartment next door who has just moved in. Wei Dao awkwardly apologizes for the misunderstanding, while the old man mentally praises the boy's quick reflexes, understanding the young master's interest in him. The elderly man bids farewell calmly, saying he just stopped by to say hello before returning to his room. Back inside, the protagonist is left pondering that confusing conversation involving a young teacher and a strange neighbor. The following morning, a bird flies under the clear sky, announcing a new day of discoveries at the academy. A crowd of students gathers in the courtyard in front of a huge digital panel set up for the official announcement of the practical results. Amidst the crowd, the students anxiously discuss who might have won first place in the round. Su Zioking goes straight to Wei Dao, demanding an explanation of how he managed to level up so quickly, and he replies that he simply defeated the boss and some elite creatures. The girl is shocked by the revelation, finding it impossible that he defeated a boss alone and accusing him of lying. Right at that moment, the director goes up to the main stage and announces over the microphone that he will reveal the official ranking of the last test. The large panel lights up, confirming Wei Dao in first place for having hunted down the slime Viscera boss and several elite beasts. Su Zioking is completely speechless when she realizes that his story was entirely true and that she really was left behind. Gossip runs rampant among the students, who are astonished to hear the undead summoner having surpassed the favorites and defeated Qian Zihao. The director continues with the announcement, revealing that the young prodigy secured second place by hunting a level 5 king wolf. With her pride wounded, the girl faces the boy and assures him that despite his strength, the competition between them is far from over. Wei Dao simply gives a friendly smile and replies that he will be ready for the challenge at any time. The director concludes the event by reminding everyone that there are only 29 days left until the big unification exam and asks them to continue striving. Later, the protagonist walks thoughtfully through the busy city streets at dusk. He quickens his pace, focused on training hard in the little time he has left, deciding to visit the dungeon square first. On the guild's notice board, the panel displays various missions with cash rewards for those who bring back parts of rare monsters. Analyzing the proposals from afar, Wei Dao decides he's tired of hunting on the ordinary plains from the beginning. He makes his choice and decides to venture into the lair of the wild gnomes to face a greater challenge. The boy approaches the large teleportation platform, closely watched by armed guards. He steps into the magical circle of blue light, confident that the difficulty of this new location is ideal for his current level. In the blink of an eye, a strong magical energy envelops him and initiates the transfer process. Upon opening his eyes in the middle of a peaceful forest, Wei Dao is confused to find that the monster's lair looks nothing like what he expected. The environment is surrounded by calm trees and docile animals that seem to pose no danger whatsoever. But he quickly becomes alert when he recalls the school lessons that teach that wild creatures always hunt in packs. He summons his skeletons just as dozens of red, hungry eyes begin to gleam atop the dark trees. A giant, ferocious humanoid wolf leaps from the branches, enveloped in a crimson aura of pure hatred. Wei Dao dodges the swift attack and indignantly complains about suffering another treacherous ambush. The boy angrily questions whether all the monsters in that dungeon have a habit of playing in such a dishonest way. The beast leaps again, letting out a terrifying howl and attacks with its sharp claws. But the skeleton's defense blocks the attack, and a magical counterattack hurls the creature forcefully to the ground. The system confirms the quick death of the level 1 monster and awards experience points to the protagonist. Wei Dao points out that those types of monsters usually travel in large groups, and that others must be nearby. As expected, several other identical beasts leap from the treetops to surround the boy's undead. The young man smiled excitedly, seeing that his deduction was completely correct. With a swift command, he orders his skeletal mages to prepare their fire spells to blast the invaders. A rain of fireballs strikes the creatures that were advancing furiously. The monsters are eliminated in large bursts of flames, granting massive experience bonuses to the protagonist. The creatures' bodies lie lifeless across the clearing after the devastating attack. Wei Dao slung his shovel over his shoulder, satisfied to be able to work right at the entrance of the new map. He begins to dig with determination, promising to bury all the bodies meticulously. 10 minutes later, several completed graves begin releasing purple bonus bubbles into the air. The young man relaxes on the grass while the system reveals that he has earned incense, corpse oils, and even a bonus magic book. Holding the shiny book, he becomes euphoric upon realizing he has managed to learn the analysis spell for free. He absorbs the magical knowledge, pleased to save a fortune he would have spent buying that skill on the market. Next, he looks at his skeletal boar and notices that the accumulated experience is enough to attempt an evolution. The young man pulls the valuable, mysterious bone finger from the wooden box his neighbor gave him. He approaches the monster and decides to begin the enhancement ritual immediately to see the result. As soon as he activates the bone, an immense whirlwind of purple flames and dark energy engulfs the boar, initiating its transformation. The evolution ritual is a complete success, and the system notifies that the skeletal boar has been promoted to the level of Beast General, gaining insane combat attributes. Wei Dao admires the imposing new form of his elite monster, impressed to note that the total sum of its new stats exceeds 2,000 points. Pleased with the improvement, the young man pets the animal's snout and decides to christen it with the affectionate name of Peppa. Next, he lights a few more tomb incense sticks to accumulate extra experience points and level up his skeleton mage. The boy points his mysterious bone finger at the hooded wizard to initiate his class advancement. New currents of purple magical energy envelop the skeleton in a violent transformation process. The panel confirms that the summon has been promoted to the skeleton mage boss class, donning imposing red robes and gaining the Great Fireball spell. Wei Dao puts his arm around the shoulder of his new and powerful spiritual ally, deciding that from that day forward he will be called Aints. With all his main combat units properly upgraded, the young man sports a confident, mischievous grin. He leaps off a cliff laughing loudly and declares that it's time to turn the monster's lair upside down. Deep in the woods, a group of gigantic minotaurs armed with axes walks calmly, unsuspecting of everything. Suddenly, a barrage of giant flaming spheres plummets from the sky towards the creatures. One of the bull men looks up, quite confused, as he notices the glow of the fire rapidly approaching. But he is hit squarely at the same moment, exploding in a devastating whirlwind of fire. Wei Dao emerges just behind his troops, pointing his iron shovel at the enemy and ordering his servants to begin the massacre. The surviving minotaurs roar with pure fury and prepare their battle axes for combat. However, the protagonist only laughs maniacally and summons dozens of dark spells to fight to the limit of his strength. Large purple spheres of flame strike the monsters one by one, generating several consecutive explosions in the forest. 3 hours pass, and the elite boar continues to trample and destroy enemy lines without the slightest difficulty. After defeating another minotaur, a system panel notifies Wei Dao that he has completed the requirements for his first automatic class advancement. The boy shines brightly as his immortality ability gains the incredible passive effect of damage transfer. He is amazed by the new passive ability, realizing that he will be literally immortal as long as he has enough servants to absorb his wounds in his place. The system also bestows upon him a new power in his exclusive shovel, allowing him to desecrate graves to resurrect the dead as faithful servants. Wei Dao examines his favorite tool and comments, horrified, on how that ability to violate graves is somewhat evil. Suddenly, a gigantic, fast-moving energy spear is launched from the middle of the forest towards the protagonist. The boy turned around startled, his eyes widening as he noticed the lethal approach of that mysterious projectile. The metal spear pierces his chest devastatingly, causing the young man to spit blood in a terrifying surprise attack. The impact throws Wei Dao far against the rocks, generating a large cloud of dust. He falls stretched out in a destroyed crater in the earth, with the enormous metal harpoon embedded deep in his chest. The weapon appears to have fatally pierced the young man's skin very close to his collarbone. However, Wei Dao suddenly opens his eyes with a start and takes a deep breath. He sits there confused, realizing he feels no pain, and understands with relief that the new passive ability has transferred all the lethal damage to one of his summons. From the shadows of the trees emerges the main culprit behind the attack, a huge minotaur chief whose voice cracks into an intimidating roar. The beast advances, destroying the surrounding vegetation with its immense physical strength. He leaps incredibly high, wielding a giant metal bow to prepare a new, precise shot at the boy. Without wasting any time, the protagonist activates his new analysis spell to study the weaknesses of his new opponent. The panel reveals that the opponent is named Yason, a level 16 Minotaur boss with the advanced class of Earth Sharpshooter. Wei Dao is astonished to discover that the creature possesses highly developed intelligence and even its own combat class. The boss fires yet another colossal arrow that tears through the sky at high speed toward the boy. The projectile grazes his shoulder violently, but dissipates into purple smoke without causing any real injury. The young man laughs at the situation, commenting that he would be dead twice if it weren't for the excellent damage transfer magic. The Minotaur sharpshooter lands aggressively on the ground, preparing his bow for yet another deadly attack. But the protagonist simply gives a smug smile and announces that his attack time is up, and that now it's his turn to act. The boss stares at his opponent for a moment with a serious and analytical look. However, to Wei Dao's surprise, the elite monster simply turns its back and starts running away into the woods. Mounted on the back of his elite boar, the boy advances leading his army and shouts that the monster will not escape after daring to attack him. The sniper runs desperately and plunges headfirst into a dark, damp cave among the mountain rocks. The protagonist follows the beast into the dark crevice, demanding that it stop its escape once and for all. Wei Dao cautiously walks through the entrance of the rocky crevice, trying to adjust his eyes to the darkness of that place. But he is taken by surprise when he sees a huge, mysterious silhouette emerge from the shadows of the cave, high above several skeletons of adventurers lying on the ground. Wei Dao scratches his chin thoughtfully as he examines the cave, wondering why so many human remains have accumulated there. The floor of the place is completely covered with the skeletons of fallen adventurers beneath a mysterious purple mist. Suddenly, the protagonist comes to his senses and realizes, with a start, that he has fallen into a perfect ambush. With a gigantic crash, several rocks collapse from the ceiling and completely block the cave entrance, trapping him inside. Immediately afterward, dozens of bright red eyes begin to open in the total darkness of the crevice. Wei Dao claps mockingly and praises the monster's intelligence for creating a trap to corner him, commenting that thinking beasts are truly different. Flanked by his strongest servants, he warns with a confident smile that he will not be defeated so easily by them. The furious minotaurs charge against the boy's line of skeletons, letting out terrifying roars in the darkness. But the mages react quickly, firing fire spells that generate several detonations and smoke throughout the cave. Despite some skeletal warriors being split in half by enemy axes, the protagonist's defense remains steadfast. The young man points to the horde of monsters and taunts them, saying that their weapons will break before they can put an end to his endless army. He orders his red-robed wizard and the other servants to unleash all their destructive power to blast their rivals in one go. A veritable rain of gigantic fireballs falls upon the minotaurs who are advancing desperately. The flames generate a devastating chain reaction, incinerating the beasts and guaranteeing an absurd amount of points for the protagonist. Thanks to the immense experience gained from clearing the cave, Wei Dao receives a golden beam that elevates him directly to level 12. Suddenly, an immense shell engulfed in red flames slams its fist onto the ground, shaking the entire area. A giant minotaur with red skin and colossal muscles reveals itself in the darkness, angered by the audacity of the human invader. Wei Dao simply stares at him with a confident look, excited by the chance to gain even more experience with that elite monster. The red beast charges forward, roaring with hatred and preparing its giant battle axe for a devastating attack. He brings down his heavy weapon violently, destroying the ground and shattering several of the smaller skeletons that were trying to hold him back. The gang leader's voice cracks into a furious roar as he sweeps through the cave, destroying the boy's troops in all directions. He leaps directly at the protagonist, yelling for him to burn in hell. But Wei Dao doesn't move and gives a smug smile, commenting that the moment for him to become fertilizer for the soil has arrived at just the right time. The colossal axe strikes the boy squarely with a terrifying bang, kicking up dust all over the crevice. However, thanks to his new protective passive ability, the skeletal arm of one of his mages absorbs and shatters under the impact of the lethal blow instead of the master. The elite minotaur attempts to pull out his axe, but realizes with horror that his heavy weapon has been firmly blocked by Aintz's skeletal hands. Emerging unscathed right behind his strongest henchman, the protagonist smirks and announces that the fight ended in checkmate. The beast screams in terror the moment it notices the skeleton wizard concentrating an immense burst of flaming energy right in front of its snout. The servant fires a colossal fireball at point-blank range, striking the monster's gaping maw. The violent detonation throws the giant minotaur backward, burning its skin and leaving it defenseless. The impact hurls the boss's heavy body through the air in a humiliating way. The creature explodes in a destructive whirlwind of purple flames and ash that consumes its entire body. The protagonist shines again as he levels up to level 13 with the victory, surprised and praising how ruthless his skeleton mage can be in combat. Satisfied with the result, the boy grips his iron shovel and decides it's time to reap the rewards of the battle. He begins digging up the earth where he buried the elite minotaur, causing dozens of purple bonus bubbles to emerge from the ground. Wei Dao becomes completely giddy, and his mouth waters when he sees the immense list of valuable items that the system has released with that grave. He breaks into a wide smile as he collects the prizes in his bag, celebrating the chance to make another small fortune in the swap market. At that very moment of distraction, two swift metal spears pierce the darkness of the cave, pointed directly at the boy's back. Without showing any fear, the protagonist gives a smug smile and comments that he had been expecting that surprise attack for a long time. He simply executes a quick side-to-side dodging motion, letting the projectiles uselessly embed themselves in the stone wall beside him. The chief sniper watches the scene from atop a rocky platform, intrigued to see the young man emerge unscathed. His eyes widen and his voice cracks in astonishment as he realizes that the young human managed to dodge his sure shot. Wei Dao points upwards mockingly, asking if the monster really thought he would be too weak to fight back after losing his mages. He stands imposingly surrounded by his best troops, warning that he regrets having to spoil the celebration of the horned beast. Chief Yason gritted his teeth in fury, unable to understand how a mere novice summoner could command so many powerful creatures at once. The boy activates his dark energy and counters the question with a menacing look, demanding to know why a monster of that level possesses such advanced intelligence. Without giving it time to react, the protagonist extends his arm and orders his entire army to finish off the insolent creature immediately. The sharpshooter furiously readies his giant bow, yelling at the enemy not to celebrate victory too soon. A horde of floating mages appears, firing dozens of flaming spheres from above towards the monster, which tries to defend itself as best it can. The barrage of fire magic hits the elite boss head-on, exploding the entire place in a devastating spectacle of destruction. The Minotaur chief leaps back quickly to escape the counterattack of the flames and catch his breath. He draws his bow again and fires an extremely destructive earth arrow spell at the boy. The projectile hits the ground violently, opening immense cracks in the rock and sending stones flying in all directions. Wei Dao senses the danger and notices that the powerful blow covers a vast area of impact. Several giant spikes of golden energy begin to sprout from the cracks in the destroyed ground. The magic hits his skeleton mages squarely, easily destroying the protagonist's defensive barrier. Retreating quickly, the young man orders Peppa and Aints to join forces to relentlessly attack the shooting minotaur. The skeletal boar general charges at high speed toward the chief, letting out a menacing roar. The enemy is paralyzed with fright upon noticing the absurd speed at which the skeletal beast approaches. Yason can barely hold the tip of the giant tusk with his bare hands to avoid being crushed. He exerts tremendous force against the animal, but desperately admits that he won't be able to hold the pressure for much longer. Peppa unleashes her top-tier collision attack and violently hurls the boss against the wall of the rift. The elite minotaur screams in pain as it crashes forcefully against the solid rocks of the cave. Taking advantage of the target being immobilized, the wizard Aints emerges from above wielding a colossal fireball in his hands. He casts the spell directly at the beast's face, giving it no chance to react. The Minotaur chieftain is consumed by a powerful electrical energy and destructive flames that fry his body. A massive explosion occurs on the rock face, burying the opponent under a shower of gravel. Wei Dao calmly walks to the crater and ironically laments the deplorable state in which the enemy ended up. Upon examining the body beneath the smoke, he realizes with surprise that the elite monster still possesses a tenacious breath of life. The boy considers that, despite wanting to bury it, the beast's intelligence is very strange and that it would be better to hand it over to the guards for investigation. Outside the dungeon, the military escort notices the participants' delay and begins to fear that something serious has happened inside. Suddenly, the magical return portal shines intensely with a strong bluish energy. A huge flash of teleportation illuminates the entire main square, drawing everyone's attention. Wei Dao emerges from the lights in an imposing manner, carrying the defeated Minotaur chieftain on his shoulder, surrounded by his horde of skeletons and the wounded students he saved. One of the guards points in surprise, alerting his colleagues that someone has finally managed to return from the mission. The dust settles, revealing the identity of the boy who just saved the classes from the exam. The soldiers rush towards him, horrified to see so many students lying unconscious on the courtyard floor. The protagonist explains that a clever boss set a trap in the gnome's lair and defeated the students one by one. The officer is shocked by the gravity of the situation and warns that he will alert his superiors to send advanced soldiers to stop the creature. But Wei Dao throws the Minotaur Yasen's body haphazardly to the ground and says that all this trouble won't be necessary. He points with his foot towards the unconscious enemy and signals that the danger has been properly neutralized. The guard's jaw drops when he sees the level 16 boss completely knocked out and asks in astonishment if it was the boy who captured him. Ignoring the other's astonishment, Wei Dao asks where the nearest counter is to exchange the dungeon prizes. The officer points in the direction of the rewards office and tells the young man to go ahead. The boy thanks them and calmly walks to the location, leaving the guards to look after the rescued students. He enters the exchange room politely and greets the employee who is in charge of customer service. The boy empties his magic pouch onto the table, spilling an absurd amount of golden horns for evaluation. The woman's eyes widened in surprise upon seeing the impressive quantity of rare artifacts she had accumulated. She assesses the impeccable quality of the horns and estimates that the entire lot is worth approximately 320,000 dineros. Wei Dao grins from ear to ear and holds out his cell phone, eager to receive the bank transfer. The transaction happens instantly, confirming the deposit of the funds directly into your personal account. The young man leaves the office skipping with joy, his pockets full, planning to spend his money treasure hunting at the market. The sun begins to set as the boy crosses once more through the large gate of the city's trading market. He walks through the streets hoping he won't have the misfortune of running into the crooked merchant from last time. But in the blink of an eye, the salesman appears smiling right in front of his face, asking if he was looking for him. The boy recoils, startled by the sudden appearance, and complains, asking why that annoying fellow always shows up. The young man tries to walk away, gesturing for the vendor to leave, stating that he has nothing good to sell today. But the merchant gives him a friendly nudge, insisting that he take a look at some excellent new items he has just received. The protagonist ignores the nonsense and firmly states that he will neither look at nor buy anything from his hand. The man then appeals to the boy's weakness, displaying an evolution potion and a new book of rare spells, dramatically lamenting that he can't find the right customer for the items. Wei Dao becomes intrigued when he realizes that the merchant is offering a book of rare skills and a mysterious evolution potion. His eyes light up when he notices that the items can summon elite-level skeleton guards and evolve his creatures. He changes his mind immediately and, full of interest, steps forward to ask the price of those two treasures. The shopkeeper gives a sarcastic little smile and teases the boy, reminding him that he had just said he wasn't going to buy anything. The protagonist bursts into laughter and says there's always room for negotiation, suggesting a trade while showing some valuable equipment from his inventory. At that moment, Wei Dao dumps a veritable collection of gleaming weapons, shields, and jewels directly onto the courtyard floor. The seller examines the goods very carefully and offers 150,000 coins for the entire lot. The young man becomes furious at the absurd proposal and complains that his elite axe alone is worth over 100,000, warning that he won't fall for the same trick as before. The shopkeeper begins to sweat nervously and realizes that the young man has learned too quickly how not to be taken advantage of. He then proposes a direct exchange, valuing the book and the potion at 200,000 coins to trade for all the weapons the boy has in his possession. Wei Dao accepts the deal immediately and hands over his spoils while storing the new magical items in his bag. The rascal puts his arm around the boy's shoulder and offers some friendly advice, telling him not to reveal all his cards to others so easily. As he walks away, the protagonist thinks to himself that the man really is a very cunning business genius. The merchant nods enthusiastically and tells the young man to come back as soon as he manages to find more rare goods to trade. Walking under the sunset escorted by his undead, Wei Dao examines the new potion and decides to seek a secluded place to test its effects. But from the shadows of an alley, a mysterious man in a blue cap watches the boy's movements and rejoices that he is finally alone. The stranger gives a grim, wry smile, thinking that the young man only has himself to blame for irritating powerful people. At that moment, the pursuer draws a sharp dagger that begins to glow with an intense bluish energy. He advances at high speed like a blur straight towards the protagonist's back. Wei Dao notices the sudden approach and turns around startled, trying to figure out who is attacking. The assassin leaps into the air and shouts aggressively that the Cayenne family paid handsomely for the boy's head. With a swift and precise strike, the enemy's blade cuts and destroys one of the protagonist's defensive skeletons. With red eyes and a manic expression, the mercenary yells at the young man to go straight to hell. He delivers a precise blow that strikes Wei Dao squarely in the chest, splattering blood into the air. The assassin calmly cleans his weapon and begins to walk back, muttering that it was a waste of time having to move for such a simple mission. Suddenly, a mysterious hand firmly touches the criminal's shoulder, and a very calm voice greets him from behind. The assassin turns around trembling with fright upon noticing that the protagonist is alive and without a scratch, thanks to his incredible damage transfer magic. Wei Dao gives a menacing smile and draws his own magical red dagger, warning that she has no comments before fighting. Without giving him time to defend himself, the boy plunges the gleaming blade straight into the mercenary's chest in a devastating blow. The killer falls to his knees on the street floor, spitting blood and stammering that it's all impossible. He collapses powerless on the sidewalk and dies, without understanding how he ended up being surpassed in such a humiliating way. The boy's system glows brightly to announce that he has defeated a level 39 assassin and earned 30,000 experience points. As he sheathes his epic dagger, the young man laments the fact that the first time he used the weapon was against a human being and not against a monster. The scene changes to a dark and cold night under the light of a full moon in the middle of the forest. Wei Dao uses his shovel to bury the enemy's body, causing several purple orbs to glow above the new grave. The boy's jaw drops when he realizes that burying a real, high-level person yields completely different spoils, such as exotic grass and a strange banknote. He examines the $10 bill with the skull design, wondering how on earth he's supposed to use that underworld currency. Suddenly, a horde of green ghosts appears around him as the system alerts him that the underworld shop has finally been activated. A huge, mystical, and glittering display case opens in the middle of nowhere, showcasing an unbelievable quantity of dark and secret items. The protagonist stands paralyzed before that fantastic, supernatural shop, unsure where to look first. He notices divine spells like the Undead Scourge, which cost astronomical sums of hundreds of billions of coins. Other shelves reveal equipment worthy of gods, such as the Monarch's Scepter and the Abyss Bone Armor, with absurdly priced headache-inducing displays. Looking at his meager single bill in hand, Wei Dao desperately yells at the system for having only $10 to spend in that place. With no other option, he decides to keep the money and closes the magic shop as the green glow dissipates into the air. Focused on what he can do at the moment, he decides that his priority now is to use the new book to summon and strengthen a skeleton guard. He activates his dark power and conjures a purple magic summoning circle on the forest floor. A new skeletal soldier wielding a massive shield emerges from the glowing runes, boasting solid defensive attributes. Wei Dao analyzes the creature's statistics and smiles with satisfaction at having acquired such a resilient physical protector for his group. To finish the tests, the young man pulls out the magic potion and decides to evolve his new bone warrior immediately. The skeleton glows intensely and transforms into an imposing beast general wearing purple armor and wielding a giant golden shield. Wei Dao is extremely excited to see that his new skeleton guard has gained almost 4,000 constitution points, making him a perfect flesh shield. He names the new defender Little Qiang and watches the imposing creature roar amidst purple flames. Next, the boy turns to his trusted skeleton wizard and decides to use another evolution potion on him. Without wasting any time, he pours the magical purple liquid directly onto the red cloak of his spiritual ally. The mage lets out a powerful roar upon evolving to the beast general level, gaining over 3,000 spirit points and the devastating ability to unleash a colossal fireball. Wei Dao is astonished by the new attributes and happily comments that his mage will surely be the most valuable warrior in future battles. He stretches contentedly after completing all the tests, deciding that it's finally time to go home and rest. The white-haired old man observes everything hidden behind a tree, very impressed to see that the boy managed to defeat an assassin from the Cayenne family all by himself. The story then shifts to the imposing Su family mansion, located in the city of Qingyang. Inside, Su Xiaoking's father is shocked to hear the old man's account of the young man's victory against the dangerous mercenary. The old man explains that immediately after the battle, Wei Dao mysteriously buried the invader's body and interacted with his summons. The man finds that act of burying the opponent extremely bizarre, and his subordinate confesses that he also couldn't understand the reason. The old man claims that the boy is too strong to need protection, and that the young lady was only worrying unnecessarily. The father reflects on the 3-year rivalry between his daughter and the young man, knowing that she wants to regain her honor and wouldn't allow anyone to hurt him before her revenge. He orders the old man to continue watching the boy, predicting that his grades will guarantee his entry into a prestigious university where the Cayenne family will not dare to interfere. The next day, a bright blue light shines in the forest as Wei Dao teleports back to the monster's lair. The boy remembers being lured away by that intelligent beast last time, and that he still needs to explore the rest of the territory. Completely focused, he runs at high speed with the goal of searching every corner of that dangerous forest. He soon finds a clearing where dozens of minotaurs howl and perform some kind of ritual around an altar. Wei Dao peeks from behind a large tree and realizes he is witnessing a very important ceremony. Your analysis spell reveals that the leader in the center is a level 20 minotaur priest capable of controlling his entire tribe. The young man finally understands that he was previously deceived, only so that the monsters could complete that sacred sacrifice without interruption. Suddenly, the priest's eyes gleam intensely as he senses the presence of an intruder in the area. The monster points its staff angrily and orders its warriors to capture the intruder immediately. Several muscular minotaurs charged furiously, wielding their battle axes toward the boy. Wei Dao merely smiles slightly and commands his new guard, Little Qiang, to advance and hold off the attack. The giant skeleton erects an impenetrable barrier of glowing purple shields directly in front of its enemies. A minotaur strikes the defense with all its might, but its axe merely collides against the solid metal without causing any damage. Behind the protective shield, the boy extends his arm, surrounded by his mages, and orders Little N to begin the massacre. A devastating rain of flames explodes against the horde of monsters, hurling the minotaurs into the air in a grand spectacle of destruction. The priest is completely perplexed and furious to see that his entire band was defeated so easily. He begins to emanate a dense aura of destructive red energy throughout his body. The monster raises its hands to the sky and begins to chant a somber prayer, asking for the supreme power of Mother Earth. But Peppa's giant skeletal paw stomps right beside her, interrupting the ritual with a sarcastic comment about the speaker. Wei Dao points at the leader and orders his elite boar to finish him off without giving him any chance to defend himself. Peppa runs like a runaway train and hits the priest squarely in the chest, causing the monster to spit blood. The force of the impact throws the Minotaur chief brutally against the dirt floor of the clearing. The skeletal pig leaps very high to crush him, while the victim screams desperately for the animal not to come closer. Peppa descends with all her weight and smashes the Minotaur priest against the ground with a violent thud. The system notifies the boy of his victory and awards him 20,000 experience points for the hunt. A massive column of golden light surrounds Wei Dao, indicating that he has just ascended to level 14. As he approaches the body, he notices with joy that a mysterious book has fallen from the enemy, even though he hasn't needed to bury it yet. He examines the shiny item and discovers it's a book on advanced meditation techniques, excellent for improving physical fitness. The young man rejoices and looks up at the sky, overjoyed to have found a true treasure free of charge in the hands of his boss. He extends his arms beneath the beam of magical energy and commands the system to learn the new skill immediately. A golden, intense glow emanates from his forehead, as the panel confirms he has mastered the advanced meditation technique. Wei Dao decides to test the effectiveness of the power right then and there, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the forest in a meditative pose. To his surprise, an insane surge of experience begins to rise, propelling him straight to level 16 and granting him an extra 100 points in all his attributes. Amazed to find that meditating is more effective than hunting monsters, the boy happily concludes that he can simply stay home practicing until the day of the exam. He then turns towards the bright blue teleportation portal and decides it's time to return to the city. Several days pass and the sun shines brightly over the city as the big moment approaches. Inside his room, Wei Dao continues meditating, focused and enveloped by a powerful golden energy. He opens his eyes with a bright gleam, realizing that the big day of the unified exam has finally arrived. The boy stands up full of energy and clenches his fists confidently, eager to show the result of all his effort. The scene then shifts to the imposing arena of the first Qingyang Academy, where the exam will be held. A crowd of students gathers in the stands, anxiously discussing the terrifying beasts they will face this year. The event announcer takes to the main stage to welcome everyone and begin explaining the monsters of the round. He announces that the challenges will feature goblins, minotaurs, and slimes ranging from level 10 to level 20, divided between common creatures and fearsome bosses. Wei Dao listens attentively to the warning that each person must choose the number of opponents based on their own power to determine their score. Without wasting any time, the presenter calls the first participant in the test, a young man named Liu Ming. The red-haired, muscular student runs towards the center of the arena under the watchful eyes of the audience. Confident, Liu Ming declares that he wishes to face 10 ordinary level 15 minotaurs and one great minotaur boss. A giant blue magic circle activates in the arena to materialize the summoned beasts for battle. The fighter focuses his energy and activates the summoning of his powerful crimsonite battle armor. He is enveloped by a strong aura of fire as the red armor molds to his body. Immediately afterwards, the young man pulls out a long, bright red sword that catches the audience's attention. The other students begin to whisper in amazement when they realize he's using the extremely rare slime sword, which grants a huge attack bonus. On the other side, Wei Dao's forehead throbs with rage as he realizes that the weapon was sold for a fortune, while the unscrupulous merchant paid him a pittance. In the arena, Liu Ming activates his special electric slash ability and charges at the beasts at high speed. He executes an impressive sequence of zigzag strikes, slicing the minotaurs one by one. The boy lands with style as sparks crackle around his boots after the lunge. With a commanding cry, he unleashes a shockwave that destroys the remaining monsters that were still trying to attack him. The presenter excitedly announces that Liu Ming has scored 161 points, revealing that the next contestant is Su Zioking. The girl stands imposingly and draws her gleaming golden sword, which emanates a strong sacred energy. Without showing any hesitation, she challenges dozens of level 20 goblin bosses all at once. The audience is utterly shocked by the girl's courage, commenting on the absurd power her angel class possesses. Wei Dao watches everything with an amused grin, realizing she's doing all this just to tease him. The portal glows brightly, causing a group of enormous green goblins to emerge onto the battlefield. The creatures let out terrifying roars and brandish their sharp daggers, ready for combat. Su Zioking opens her divine golden wings and soars towards the sky amidst a powerful burst of light. Floating high above the monsters, she lets out a battle cry and begins to concentrate all her magic on the blade. She unleashes her powerful sacred light strike and descends, delivering a colossal energy slash. The immense golden shockwave tears through the arena floor toward the terrified opponents. The goblin chieftains are hit squarely by the blast and end up being humiliatingly pulverized in an instant. The students watch the scene with wide eyes, unable to believe that she eliminated all those powerful bosses with just one blow. The announcer's voice cracks with excitement as he announces that Su Zioking has secured the maximum score of 300 points with her achievement. The crowd goes wild in the stands, chanting the young prodigy's name and celebrating her spectacular victory. She walks victoriously towards the protagonist and provocatively announces that it's time for him to lose, but the young man only sighs at her exaggerated enthusiasm. In the principal's booth, the evaluators chat in amazement about the quality of this year's students, mentioning the mystery behind the school's hidden class. Wei Dao's director smiles proudly and assures everyone that he has complete confidence in his mysterious student's potential. The rival raises an eyebrow intrigued and asks how many bosses the boy would dare to challenge today. The young man's manager scratches his chin thoughtfully and replies that 10 bosses wouldn't be a problem at all if he continued to steadily climb the ranks. The rival begins to laugh mockingly, stating that 5 bosses is already the historical limit for the exam, and accuses his colleague of exaggerating too much. With a confident look, the director of Wei Dao simply replies that they should watch it to draw their own conclusions. At that point, the announcer picks up the microphone and calls Wei Dao to be the next to take center stage. Before going upstairs, the protagonist approaches Su Zioking and asks if she could do him a small favor. He flashes a sly smile and explains that it's something simple for her family, promising to do his best on the test if she agrees to help. The students nearby began to gossip, horrified by the boy's audacity, finding him extremely shameless for asking for favors at that hour. Crossing her arms, the girl replies with a defiant smile that she will only accept if he manages to beat her score in the arena. Wei Dao accepts the challenge and runs determinedly towards the center of the battlefield to begin his test. Wei Dao walks with firm, calm steps until he positions himself in the center of the large fighting arena. With his index finger raised, he loudly announces that he wishes to challenge 100 level 20 slime bosses. The exam presenter nearly falls backward, and his voice cracks in astonishment upon hearing that absurd number of opponents. The entire audience panics, whispering that the boy has completely lost his mind and that he would faint from exhaustion even if the monsters stood still. The narrator tries to persuade him to change his mind to ensure his safety, but the protagonist calmly replies that he has already made his decision. He further explains that his original intention was to face 200 bosses, but he realized that the arena space would be too small for them all. The directors in the booth are intrigued by such audacity, and the partner suggests releasing the challenge of 100 monsters just to avoid destroying the young man's confidence. The presenter sighs worriedly but accepts the request and tells the young man to be very careful of the danger. Immediately, a gigantic blue magic circle begins to glow intensely across the entire battlefield. Hundreds of blue, gooey, red-eyed slimes emerge from the portal and begin leaping, ready to attack. Wei Dao smiles confidently amidst the purple flames and summons his entire army of undead to the arena. Emerging from the shadows, dozens of dark-cloaked skeleton mages line up to defend their master. Then their gigantic General Peppa emerges imposingly from the dark portal, letting out a terrifying roar. The students watch everything with their mouths agape, completely shocked to realize that the boy has servants of the level of fierce generals and leaders. To counterattack, the horde of slimes begins to unleash a veritable rain of corrosive green acid toward the group. The boy orders his front line to use the shields to easily block the corrosive poison. Right behind them, he commands his mages to unleash all their firepower upon the slimy invaders. A barrage of flaming spheres strikes the creatures head-on, generating a massive sequence of destructive explosions. Without giving the enemy time to breathe, Wei Dao points to the field and orders his top generals to charge them with everything they've got. He orders the complete elimination of each and every opponent remaining in the arena. His elite boar tramples and explodes a group of slimes with an overwhelming physical impact. Your elite mage is no slouch either, conjuring fiery flames directly at the faces of the gelatinous enemies. Constant explosions sweep across the battlefield, reducing even the strongest monsters to dust. Its large skeletal defender violently brings down its heavy shield on a giant slime, smashing it against the ground. The spectators watch that unbelievable scene, sweating profusely, astonished by the brutal massacre the young man is carrying out against level 20 bosses. Suzai Oking bites her lip in fear as she realizes the true and terrifying level of power of her rival in the trials. Spreading his arms dramatically in the center of the fire, the boy manically celebrates the destructive spectacle of his magical explosions. A final, gigantic explosion of flames consumes the entire arena, leaving the audience in absolute silence. The system panel glows in the air to declare the conclusion of the test, with Wei Dao's overwhelming victory against all 100 bosses. In the VIP booth, the directors are completely pale and speechless, commenting that they have just witnessed a historic moment. The announcer screams wildly as he announces that the boy has achieved a perfect score of 900 points in the challenge. The crowd goes into a complete frenzy in the stands, thrilled by the young summoner's brilliant and unprecedented feat. In the midst of the crowd, the arrogant Qian Zihao grinds his teeth with pure envy and hatred as he watches his rival being cheered by everyone. His voice cracks with hatred as he says that it's absolutely impossible and questions how that loser managed to become so powerful. Suzai Oking approaches to congratulate the boy on his perfect grade and asks what the important favor he had mentioned earlier was. Wei Dao adopts a serious demeanor and confesses his concern that the powerful Qian family will try to attack his parents as soon as he leaves the city. The young woman is surprised by the revelation and asks what exactly he expects her to do to help with this dilemma. Clasping his hands together with a touching expression, the protagonist implores her to send guards from the Su family to protect his relatives, promising to repay the favor in the future. The girl gives a cute little laugh and replies in a friendly way that it's very simple and assures her that she'll take care of everything without any problems. The boy is so relieved that he pulls her into a tight hug of gratitude, leaving the young prodigy completely red-faced and speechless. The blonde swordsman appears running in the distance with open arms, shouting furiously at the protagonist for daring to lay a hand on the girl of his dreams. The scene then shifts to the cold night falling over the young man's quiet apartment building. Wei Dao is sitting comfortably in front of his personal computer with a big smile on his face. He accesses the official website for the state's unified exam results, eager to check his scores. Suddenly, the persistent knocking sound on the front door catches the boy's attention, making him look back intrigued. He gets up from his chair and walks towards the hallway, announcing that he's on his way to attend to the patient. The boy gripped the metal doorknob firmly, demanding to know who is on the other side of the hallway. Upon opening the door, he gets a huge shock when he sees his parents and younger sister standing right in front of him. The little girl with blue hair puts her hands on her hips, looking angry, demanding to know why her brother took so long to open the door. Wei Dao grins from ear to ear and happily celebrates that they managed to get to the apartment so quickly. Wei Dao invites his parents and sister inside immediately, while his father explains that they hit the road as soon as they received his call. The little girl runs mischievously towards the computer chair, laughing and saying she's going to find out what pranks her brother has been up to in his room. She stares intently at the monitor screen, paralyzed with surprise at the information she has just found. The system screen displays the impressive final score of 975 points, confirming the young man in first place in the overall state ranking. The youngest daughter turns around screaming with joy, shocked to see that her brother had won the top spot on the standardized test. Wei Dao grinned smugly and patted her head, boastfully commenting that the result was simply her usual performance. The girl pouts angrily at the mockery and grumbles that when it's her turn to take the exam, she'll surely get an even higher grade than him. The parents enter the room beaming with happiness, praising their son's excellent performance and asking which university he plans to attend. The young man proudly reveals that his main goal is to enter the famous Madu Professionals University. He explains that he must travel in a few days to present himself at the location and reassures the family, guaranteeing that the influential Su family will send guards to protect them. The father places his hand affectionately on his son's shoulder, wishing him well in this new journey that is about to begin. Overwhelmed by the support he received, Wei Dao pulls his parents into a tender and tight farewell hug. A short time later, the scene transforms into the imposing and sunny entrance of the prestigious University of Madu Professionals. Carrying his bags, the protagonist walks through the campus gates and heads to the counter to complete his official registration. The young man proudly holds up his admission document to the veterans who are organizing the reception line. However, the veteran assistants barely look at him and rather curtly tell the newcomer to wait in the corner with the others. Suddenly, a beautiful young woman with long black hair named Nanjai approaches, carrying her suitcase, and introduces herself in a very polite manner. The guys behind the bar change their attitude instantly and are left drooling with admiration for the new student. They frantically scramble to see who will carry her luggage, while Wei Dao is left in the background clutching his admission papers. Extremely indignant at this tremendous injustice, the protagonist loudly complains about the obvious difference in treatment he has just received. The pink-haired veteran completely ignores the boy's complaints and leads the young woman on a tour of the campus facilities. At that moment, a chubby, friendly boy appears running desperately with a giant sack on his back, shouting for the veterans to wait for him. The boy holds his admission form up right in the face of the pink-haired veteran and cheerfully introduces himself as Pei Kaiyan. The veteran examines the document disdainfully and jokingly comments that the newcomer's name sounds quite unlucky for business. The veteran tells all the newcomers to follow him as he leads the way towards the dormitories. Wei Dao walks right behind, observing the chubby boy in the red coat, thinking that despite his simple appearance, the boy possesses a very strong energy around him. Curious, the protagonist decides to secretly activate his analysis spell to investigate the details of his new companion. The system reveals that Pei Kaiyan possesses the extremely rare hidden class of Blood Sacrifice Priest at power level 11. The protagonist is astonished to discover that the chubby guy also possesses an incredibly powerful hidden class. Wei Dao officially introduces himself as a summoner of the undead, making his new friend smile happily upon noticing that the boy also possesses a special power. Pei Kaiyan finds the ability to control skeletons amazing, while the protagonist praises his colleague's potential in return. The guide explains that accommodations are divided into groups of 1 to 4, and only the strongest manage to secure places in the best districts. The chubby guy asks if the veteran is strong too, and the pink-haired boy replies, quite confidently, that he secured a spot in District 4 when he was a rookie. They arrive at the central reception desk to introduce the newcomers to the receptionist, Elder Chin. The guide asks the 3 newcomers to hand over their respective letters of recommendation, so the elder can verify the information. The 3 admission forms are placed in a line on the wooden table for the official screening of the accommodations. Elder Chin reads Nanjai's document and his eyes widen in astonishment, asking if she is the famous prodigy from Daijing. He firmly taps a metal key on the table and announces that the young woman has secured a place in Villa number 4 of the prestigious District 1. The pink-haired veteran almost choked in fright and questioned the old man if there hadn't been some mistake in the allocation of the accommodations, receiving a scolding on the spot. Breaking in a cold sweat, the guide tries to console himself by thinking that, at least, the other 2 ordinary newcomers probably won't get such impressive accommodations. However, the old man reads the other letters and assigns both Pei Kaiyan and Wei Dao to the noble quarters in the 2nd district of the university. The pink-haired veteran's voice cracks in despair, his jaw dropping as he realizes that all 3 freshmen are absurdly powerful geniuses. As the conversation progresses, Pei Kaiyan's curious gaze drifts toward the central courtyard, where he spots something that catches his eye. The chubby guy nudges the blushing protagonist and warns him that there's a beautiful girl nearby, making Wei Dao notice with surprise that Su Zioking was also accepted into the same institution. The beautiful young woman in uniform recognizes the young man from afar and walks purposefully towards him. The chubby boy runs ahead, all excited to introduce himself to the school's muse, with a friendly smile. Completely ignoring the chubby guy, the girl walks right past him and casually asks which room Wei Dao has been assigned to. Pei Kaiyan burst into tears instantly, feeling humiliated at being rejected before he could even speak his own name. The young woman reveals with a cheerful smile that the two of them stayed very close to each other in the same district, much to the dismay of her chubby colleague, who imagines a romance at first sight between them. Suddenly, the confident steps of an elegant woman in high heels catch Wei Dao's attention by name. Wei Dao turns around curiously and politely asks the elegant newcomer who she is. The stylish woman with pink hair introduces herself as Wang Xiaoman, the new official instructor of the college's summoning department. She boldly holds the young man's chin and mentions hearing rumors about a brilliant young summoner who secured first place overall in the state. The instructor playfully taps the boy's cheek and assures him that she has very high expectations for his academic future. Feeling somewhat embarrassed and awkward with all that sudden closeness, the protagonist quietly asks the teacher to take it easy. She gives him a friendly pat on the back to officially welcome him to the university, reminding him not to miss the big welcoming party scheduled for the following day. With a cheerful and relaxed wave, Wang Xiaoman bids farewell to the young man and continues on his way through the courtyard. Wei Dao sighs in relief, noticing how energetic the instructor can be, while Su Xiaoqing approaches with his arms crossed, implying that he was enjoying all the attention. The girl walks away angrily, complaining that all men are the same and only interested in money, leaving the boy scratching his head, completely confused about what she meant. Suddenly, the scene changes drastically as a colossal explosion of purple energy detonates in the middle of a dark forest. A man with glasses patrolling the vicinity of a wooden bridge observes that terrifying flash with eyes wide with terror. He trembles with nervousness as he realizes that the explosion has just revealed the existence of mysterious ancient ruins in that region. Aware of the gravity of that dangerous discovery, the man rushes desperately to report what happened immediately to the university's rector. The employee on duty is completely shocked to realize that the flash of light has revealed the existence of mysterious ruins in that area. Desperate at the seriousness of the situation, he starts running to report what happened immediately to the rector. Meanwhile, the night continues quietly in the university building, with only a few lights on in the windows. Inside his office, Director Wang Yue relaxes with a hot cup of tea while reviewing documents and praising the excellent aptitude of this year's new students. Suddenly, the assistant bursts into the room shouting that ruins have appeared out of nowhere, making the director spit out all his tea in fright. Completely shocked by the news, Wang Yue slams his hands on the table and asks where and what is happening. The boy explains, breathless, that the ruins appeared only 50 kilometers to the west in the arid area, and that due to their small size, they must be only of beginner level. Hearing this, the director closes his eyes and breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that the situation isn't so terrible after all. He then plans to take a group to explore the site the following day and let the new students just observe everything from the outside. When the employee mentions that the freshman welcome ceremony is tomorrow, the director orders the event to be organized right near the ruins. The assistant readily agrees and prepares to put the plan into action. The following morning, a huge crowd of students gathers in a vast valley under the sunlight for the start of the opening ceremony. Instructor Wang Xiaoman strolls calmly across the lush green lawn, greeting the new students with a friendly smile. Wei Dao turns around upon noticing his mentor approaching and wishes her a good day. Wang Xiaoman provocatively approaches him and asks if he didn't sleep well because he looks so tired, leaving the boy completely red and embarrassed. Shortly after, the director takes the microphone on the main stage and officially introduces himself as the representative of the hand-to-hand combat department. He announces that each freshman will receive 100 starting points for free, which they can exchange for any treasure in the university's vault. The students begin to whisper excitedly about the news, already imagining the incredible relics they could obtain with these points. The director opens his arms smiling and states that they are very lucky, as this will be the most spectacular welcoming ceremony in the history of the college. He explains that this is due to the emergence of a fledgling ruin the previous night, revealing that the students will have a unique opportunity to witness the exploration up close. The news has all the young people extremely excited and celebrating the great opportunity they have received. Wei Dao asks if they couldn't enter the site as well, but Wang Xiaoman makes it clear that a fledgling ruin is still too dangerous for novices and could easily kill them. Intrigued by the explanation, the boy scratches his chin and asks what the real difference is between ruins, dungeons, and secret kingdoms. The teacher patiently explains that the secret kingdoms are real and complete worlds that exist in the universe. She adds that for other intelligent races scattered throughout space, Their own planet is also considered a secret kingdom. She goes on to say that the dungeons are merely fragmented projections of these worlds, where the monsters have no intelligence and always resurrect after dying. When Wei Dao questions where the original secret realms go, Wang Xiaoman clarifies that the fragments floating in the infinite void are what they call ruins. She earnestly warns that, contrary to projections, once the ruins materialize, they do not disappear on their own. She explains that these locations hold valuable treasures such as potions, skill books, and ancient equipment waiting to be collected. However, the ultimate prize of a ruin is the matrix core that sustains that fragment floating through the universe. As soon as someone manages to obtain this energy core, the entire structure of the ruin collapses and quickly disappears. Intrigued by all of this, Wei Dao asks how people manage to get into these mysterious places. Wang Xiaoman explains that the moment the ruins open, a thick fog appears and anyone covered by it will be teleported inside. At that moment, Wei Dao points behind him and asks tensely if she is referring to a situation similar to the one happening right there. The instructor turns around quickly and freezes when she notices a terrifying purple smoke rising right behind her. The dark fog begins to spread at an alarming speed across the lawn, generating general panic as it advances towards the students. Wang Xiaoman screams desperately, urging everyone to run before the expanding ruin reaches the group. One of the freshmen tries to escape, but realizes with horror that the clutches of smoke have already caught up with him and that it is too late to flee. Several students begin screaming for help as they are violently pulled into the dark portal. There on stage, the director watches the scene in horror, unable to understand how the entrance to a fledgling ruin could have expanded so much. A large burst of light hits the location, destroying the structures, making the man realize that someone is sabotaging the event behind his back. Wei Dao is enveloped by the purple energy and tries to resist with all his might, frustrated by his inability to break free from the dark bonds. Wang Xiaoman runs desperately towards the boy, stretching out his arm and shouting his name in an attempt to save him. But before she can reach him, the young man is swallowed by the fog and disappears into thin air.